Shraddha murder case, horrific and gory details emerge. Shraddha's family alleges a love jihad angle in the murder. From Mumbai to Delhi, a demand for justice for Shraddha grows. Were more killers and accomplices in the murder than just Aftab? What's the truth? In the Shraddha murder case, a big focus on the dating app Bumble as well. Horrific medical negligence kills a footballer in Chennai. She had gone in for a routine operation, but she is no more. India's G20 mission continues, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has just met Xi Jinping of China. Hello and welcome viewers. You are watching Biggest Story Tonight. I am Ankit Prasad and we've been tracking the movement for justice for Shraddha after almost 36 hours of horrific details coming to light after this 6-month-old case was cracked by the Delhi police. We've seen today already how Aftab, the killer, was taken to the Mehrauli forest to recreate the crime scene. Since then, we have spoken to a number of people who were on the pursuit for justice, who were on the pursuit for the truth, including Shraddha's father, a friend of Shraddha's, who I think made the most chilling submissions and clarified a lot of what we had been hearing to do with this case. We are going to get you more details on it. We've also seen how a doctor who had treated Aftab's wound right in the immediate aftermath, if we are to believe, of him committing the murder, he spoke to us and he spoke about Aftab's demeanor. We've also been to the shop where Aftab purchased a meat cleaver, a knife store, who remembers Aftab coming in and asking for garbage bags and knives, and also asking for directions to a hospital where he can seek treatment for an injury. And amidst all of this, one aspect that a lot of people have highlighted that has caught their eye is the fact that these visuals on your screen show how in the police lockup, in his 5-day police custody, Aftab appears to be sleeping in a completely carefree manner. And so, viewers, there are a lot of questions that need right now to be answered. Let's take a look at one or two of the most sordid details that have come to light today.
आप दूर रहे
आप ठीक है आप
दूर रहे हैं
चलो कोई नहीं Here you can see that there is drama which is going on.
ने जंगल के अंदर इन्वेस्टिगेशन पुलिस की टीम आफ्ताब को लेकर यहाँ पर थाने के अंदर जा रही है। ये देखिए तस्वीर में आप देख सकते हैं कि आफ्ताब
Here you can see that Aftab is being taken and there are dramatic scenes that are being returned. The officials do not want to allow us to go, but there are people who are over here who is this thing, and we are just, this is the visuals which are being presented to you by my video journalist. And this is the
dismembering her body, and now you can see the police
पुलिस की टीम मैंने कैमरामैन रवीश पांडे आपको देखिए आफ्ताब की तस्वीरें आप देख पाएंगे। आफ्ताब इसी पुलिस की गाड़ी के अंदर।
So there, viewers, you saw our confrontation with Aftab after he was produced earlier today at the crime scene, where there was an attempt to recreate the crime, and a number of the other visuals on your screens right now tell you what exactly has gone on. On the rightmost window, you see a protest that is taking place, and this protest we have seen also in a number of cities, Delhi, Mumbai, both included. Of course, Aftab and Shraddha were both related to both cities as well, and there is a massive demand for justice for Shraddha. We now have a few expert voices joining us. We have Swapnil Kothari, lawyer, joining us, and Atiq-ur-Rahman also, who is with us as well. I'd like to go across to Swapnil first. Swapnil, one of the things that we have just come to know, and perhaps the most disturbing aspect, I think, that we've heard even amid all these very, very ghastly things, is the fact that Aftab purportedly disposed of Shraddha's decapitated head last, and he would apparently stare at it every night until he finally disposed of it. What does this bring to your mind? Is it some form of sadism? What does it indicate? What does this mean also when they try him and they try and get justice for her in the courts?
Well, I think this is more of an unsound mind as far as that aspect is concerned, to keep staring and possibly looking at it in disbelief that he did what he did. But I believe unsound, not in terms of legally unsound. What I mean to say is that he is possibly deranged in that sense. But this is a defense that the defense lawyers could take it up, and I think this is where the prosecution will have to be very smart and try to ensure that when the trial does take place, Ankit, what they need to ensure is that he does not claim that he was deranged or of mental incapacity so as not to form an intention to kill someone. So this is something, because mens rea is very important. It's part of criminal jurisprudence, which is called the intention, a criminal intention. So to say that I was mentally deranged or completely off my head so as not to form a criminal intention would be some sort of a defense that they will try to put up. We call it some sort of a delirium, that he was in delirium tremens, as we call it in law. But I don't think that that is something which the prosecution will obviously would have prepared itself for, and when it goes into a fast track mode, this is something that they will try to dispense with at the very first instance, because that is the only defense that this person can have. Other than, of course, if the prosecution looks at witnesses, brings in the witnesses properly, gets them examined, and even gets them a chance to be cross-examined. Because if you notice in Kiran Negi's case, what happened is
right.
that the trial
Swapnil, just stay with us for a second. I believe we have some information coming in. We have an audio issue with your mic. We'll just try and fix that. I'd like to go across to Atiq-ur-Rahman. Meanwhile, Swapnil, will just come back to you. Atiq-ur-Rahman, clearly there is a protest in multiple cities seeking justice. We've also spoken to a friend of Shraddha's who has somewhat lifted the lid on this whole marriage angle also. He indicates that Shraddha was trying to get out of this relationship for some time. What do you make of the entire case that has come to light so far? What is your view, and also on whether or not there is any kind of love jihad angle here as well, which has been indicated?
Well, you see, this is gruesome. And people who are trying to get into the angle of love jihad, I won't agree, because this angle will be giving a very, very large room for this heinous crime of this fellow. In legal terms, maybe Swapnil can put light on this. So rather than, having a very, very narrow approach of love jihad, this should be seen as a crime which has been committed by taking the liberty of the liberty laws within our constitution. The Supreme Court, our society, our constitutional makers, they have granted the youth the liberty to live in. This live-in relationship has been, very, very narrowly taken by the youth today, and this I see as a result of this. Plus, yesterday I was on a debate with a DGP, retired DGP, who pinpointed that how can we just shut our eyes as a civil society on a couple, the girl who was complaining to her friends that she is having an abusive relationship and nobody cared to help her. Nobody cared to bring this to the notice of either the police agencies or her parents. You know, we cannot sit idly in our homes and just discuss this after the crimes have been committed. And the politicians giving it a color of love jihad, are they in their senses? You know, every youth, youth, if they are engaging themselves, taking advantage of the liberty laws and the freedom laws, if they are getting into relationships.
I think, is it a matter of taking advantage of laws? We don't want to put it in a direction where it's not and generalize. We'll just go across to Swapnil actually. Swapnil, if you would like to weigh in on some of the things that Atiq-ur-Rahman has been speaking about, is it got to do with people taking advantage of live-in relationships, or is it more to do with what we are yet to find out perhaps about what this killer was up to? What were the details of this relationship they were in? What do you think?
Ankit, what matters ultimately at the end of the day is that there are these two adults. They chose to live in. Live-in relationships are sanctioned both by the courts and up to a certain extent by some liberal society, liberal people in our society. Now, to say that this is a disadvantage stemming out of live-in relationships, I think it has got more to do with a criminal mind, and the mind was definitely set to murder when he moved to Delhi in some Mehroli area. On 15th of May and on the 18th of May, the murder was committed. So obviously the move that was done by the accused in question, that is Aftab, was definitely with an intention to kill his partner. Now, why that has happened, what is the reason behind it, that is something which the police will come out with, and that is something which the motive will be established eventually. Now, regardless of the fact that even if we do not come to a proper motive behind the killing, the fact is that Shraddha has been murdered. Aftab has confessed to his killing. Of course, the confession before the police does not really matter within the law of evidence. What matters is ultimately that the prosecution proves that he was there at that time, he committed the offense, and not only that, but it leads appropriate witnesses. As I was telling in my initial comment, Ankit, that it shouldn't so happen like it happened in Kiran Negi's case, that in a haste, the trial court and the High Court give a decision in favor of Shraddha's family, and the Supreme Court overturns it because it saw some glaring lapses, like the constables who arrested the accused at that time were not even examined. So I hope that none of that happens here. And this case is fast-tracked, and this gentleman meets the gallows straight away. There cannot be any justification for this sort of a grisly crime. It's an absolute butchering. As far as the love jihad aspect is concerned, I would not want to go into that unless and until there is certain evidence that points to that direction.
Right.
As and when it does, maybe that can be examined. Of course, whether it's love jihad or it's not love jihad, that doesn't dilute or increase the crime. The murder remains as it is within the parameters of Section 302, and the sentence doesn't increase just because it happens to be love jihad, or it doesn't decrease just because it isn't. The point is that life taking is punishable under Section 302, and that is exactly what the fate will meet this man, and I hope it does. And it is just fast-tracked, and and I'm glad that the media is carrying this, and especially Republic Television is literally after this story, which no other channel is pursuing the way you guys are doing, because you need to do this. Other than that, what will happen is that you will see a lot more cases coming out of the closet like this.
Absolutely. We want to ensure justice in this case, Swapnil, like in all such matters that we take up. I'll take an aspect of what you said to Atiq-ur-Rahman. Now, I think we have seen, Swapnil just spoke about it, a lot of people have been calling for very, very strict punishment, strictest of the strict, because they feel that this is rarest of the rare as well. What is your reading into this? Is there a case that you have in mind? Is there a particular kind of assessment that you have made regarding what is desirable in this case in view of punishment?
Ankit, as you pointed out that there are several protests across the country related to punishment for this beastly crime. You know, this punishment should be a eye-opener for the society. It should be so severe that no other, either in a live-in relationship or otherwise, no other person takes advantage of any of our laws and repeats this crime. You know why I pinpointed that the love jihad angle should not be imposed on this is our political class, for their narrow political ends, if they are putting such things into perspective, this reduces, not legally reduces the crime, but this reduces the criminal act and the gruesome act he has committed in the minds of the people at large. The political class, since they are under oath, our legislatures, what they should come out with the comments is no furthering of any sorts of this thing in the years to come, in the days to come. We have to put a full stop, and that is why the protesters are right in their demand that the punishment should be equally dastardly on this particular fellow, so that there cannot be any repeat of this crime of this sort.
So Atiq is very clearly calling for a precedent to be set so that there is no repeat. He has said it without explicitly stating those words, and I won't get into that right now. I do want to also, however, go back across to Swapnil. Now, one of the aspects that people are talking about is the app on which these pair met, on which this couple met, and also on which Aftab apparently also met another girl who he went out with after he had killed Shraddha. Is there a need for a check and balance? Because there are a number of dating apps that allow people to join. They don't do any background checks. Some of them have a partial degree of anonymity where you don't disclose a person's name, details, etc. Where do you see a check and balance system coming in to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen?
Well, world over, these dating apps have gained a lot of currency, and I think it's extremely difficult when somebody sits behind the computer and log in to see as to what his mind is, what his background is, or what is her background or her mindset, anything of that sort. So that is the risk that two individuals in question who choose to meet pursuant to a dating app connection, they take into account. It's something which there is no amount of check and balance that is going to justify or that is going to be really sufficient as far as that is concerned. Because let's extrapolate this example to two individuals meeting actually and then deciding to get into a marriage. I mean, is there a guarantee that the marriage is going to run? No, there isn't. So, it all depends upon, at the end of the day, the two individuals in question. Now, obviously, the girl was very much willing to go ahead with this gentleman. She had a live-in relationship. She went to Delhi with him. Thereafter, what happened, or was it even before that? And as we are seeing, as the skeletons come tumbling out of the closet since 2021, as your Republic TV is trying to sift through the, a lot of investigative material, I think we'll come to know there'll be more light on this, that fights are normal, it happens, but to what extent those fights can capitulate into that is something which needs to be arrested. And I completely agree with Mr. Atikur Rahman here that this particular thing needs to be set as a precedent, not only for the two couples in question who choose to get into a live-in relationship, but for anybody who even chooses to marry, because at the end of the day, the women seem to be the biggest victims of this kind of a dastardly crime. And I believe that this is where I think the law should be very strict and try to fast track it. Yes, there is enough evidence, and a lot of people will tell me who are, the people from the human rights, that Mr. Kothari, let me tell you that human rights, death penalty doesn't really, dissuade people from killing someone. But as far as it's there on the statute books, and it is the highest sort of, retributive justice, if I may use that word, then it should be so exercised. And as long as it's there on the books, we should execute that. So I don't see a reason why it shouldn't be done, Ankit, and the dating apps can go ahead with the way they are doing it. There's very little that I think you can do to cross-check someone who sits behind a computer.
All right. Number of key points coming to light. I'd request both Swapnil Kothari and Atikur Rahman to stay with us, viewers. A short while ago, Republic's investigation took us to the shop where Aftab had gone and purchased a meat cleaver, which he used for a number of extremely depraved things. Now, let's take a look at what that shop owner had said.
The cops came in the afternoon and they came with the accused. And the accused has confirmed the cops that he, 5 months back, he came and purchased some knives and garbage bag from the shop. And after, he actually was hurt by the knife. So just next to us, we have a hospital. So we recommended him to visit the hospital. So this, as per him, he has confirmed the cops that he came 5 months back and he purchased some knives and garbage bags. So we don't actually remember, but because it's now been more than 5 months, so we actually came across so many customers in a routine time, so we don't remember that. But he told the cops that he came.
So this incident dates back to day before yesterday. Could you or any of the workers who work here in the shop could recognize him or recognize a similar kind of face that had come like 4-5 months back to the same shop?
See, I was not there at that time. My workers were there, and the worker who was, he left us 2 months back. He's not working with us. So there's nobody who confirmed that he visited, and we could not identify him.
So when the cops asked him if this was the same shop that he bought the knife from, what was his exact words?
He told the cops that he came 5 months back, and from this shop he purchased knife and some garbage bags.
Did he quote the number of knives that he purchased?
No, he just purchased one knife as per him.
And soon after that, he went to a hospital nearby for his treatment because we get to learn that he got hurt in his hand. Is that?
Yes, that is correct.
So there we have the shop's owner confirming that the accused Aftab did confirm to the cops that he purchased knife from this very shop.
So viewers, you just saw that was the owner of the shop from where Aftab purchased a knife after killing Shraddha. Now we have Swapnil Kothari and Atikur Rahman, and I'd like to ask them to keep this conversation in mind. I'd like to ask Atik first. You know, the whole country is shocked by this, but there is also a feeling that not enough people are talking about it. Is there an element of such crimes being normalized for a certain section of people? What do you attribute this to? We are hearing more and more ghastly details emerge, but a lot of the time you find that nothing shocks people anymore.
Well, Ankit, that's true, and that's painful also, I would say. Since yesterday we are just, looking at these stories tumbling out of this particular incident, and it's so easy for people to say that the people go to the shops and buy garbage bags and knives, and even I heard a chemical he used so that less and less of the blood oozes out of the body. Some sort of a chemical is mentioned in the newspapers today. So this is we need to realize as a civil society, even our Bollywood films are having such crimes, such scenes based on such crimes, wherein people can have some kind of a learning from the films, from the shops which are selling such lethal either weapons or chemicals. And on the internet, a surfing can be done, that how to commit a crime, how to put that into fridges, how to make sure that the less and less blood oozes out of the body. This is so ghastly, Ankit. Right. As a civil society, are we in our minds? Are we not, thinking towards these elements and these things? The social media is a Frankenstein. We need to think about, ponder, we need to put our heads together, either legally within the government parameters or even the bureaucracy, police reforms and judicial reforms.
Atik, so clearly, Swapnil also, I'd like to come across to you. Atik is suggesting, and there is an element of borrowed creativity here. Now what we want to know is, for the police, what do they need to prosecute him? Do we need the murder weapon? Do we need a confession? What is required so that this is brought to its logical conclusion?
The confession may not help as much as a tad bit to say that, okay, well, you were present and you've confessed, and more so you need to establish it with a certain amount of proof. The murder weapon, the garbage bags, this shopkeeper who can be called in as a witness, the people in the neighboring area who must have seen him going out at 2 a.m. every night post-murder, somebody who noticed some unusual activity, given the fact that I'm sure there is someone who must have noticed the absence of Shraddha, because if there is a couple that has moved in my neighborhood and I see only one of the people coming out of the flat, then I'm definitely going to start wondering as to what has happened to the other at some point. So I think there could be some witnesses to that aspect. And most importantly, the chemical that was used, the post-mortem report, the body parts which would obviously go to show some marks on that, which can be then compared to the knife that was used, or a meat cleaver as I'm reading it on your screen. So all of these will go ahead to show that there is a guilt on part of the accused and there is an offense committed which is to be proved beyond reasonable doubt
Right.
by the prosecution. Because this case, all along, Mr. Aftab can remain quiet because the onus lies on the
Right.
prosecution. And eventually then I think that proof should be more incriminating and more culminating into the conviction than anything else, I think. I think that should suffice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Swapnil Kothari and Atikur Rahman, I thank you for joining us. We are tracking this story very closely, viewers. We have the most relevant voices on ensuring justice and reading into the horrific events that have transpired. We'll continue to get you more, and we'll also tell you that you can watch all of this on republicworld.com as well, all our investigation.